The Data Import Wizard provides you a way to import data into your Dynamics CRM organization. It's especially effective for CRM Online, where you can't get to the database. Let's start with the basics. Data can be imported into both system and custom entities. The import file must be mapped to the target entity or entities. The map identifies where to place each imported column. Sample maps for all the entities in CRM are provided. You can also create and save your own data maps for reuse. Automatic mapping is supported. It uses column headers of the import file to match target attribute names. And you can download sample templates for all entities to get those names to make it easier to set up your own templates. You can import into option sets and lookups, and the templates greatly facilitate this kind of import. You can import more than one entity at a time, and you do this by grouping the import files together in a zip file and then map. You can also export entity data for data enrichment and then re-import it later. The import file requirements. The file types you can import include the XML spreadsheet format with a .xml suffix, comma-separated values, or CSV file, text files, and compressed or zip files containing the above types of files. There's one file per import, so if you're importing multiple tables, you combine each entity table into the same zip file. When you're importing, you must import all business-required columns or the import will fail. There's a maximum of 8 megabytes of data per entity file imported. Multiple entity import file requirements. All import files must be combined into a single zip file. Each entity import file in the zip file must be the same file type, either an XML spreadsheet, CSV, or text files. You can't mix these files types within a single zip file. If you want to link the data, it requires common key fields to be defined. So for instance, if you import accounts and contacts, the account must have a unique ID field, and that contact to be associated with the account must refer to that unique ID somewhere in the imported record. Again, you must import all business required columns, a maximum of 8 megabytes per entity file, and a max of 32 megabytes per zip file. Supported data maps. You can start with automatic mapping, which is the default. That assumes that you have properly named the column headers in your import file to match the field names of the columns that you want the data imported into. There's also a generic contact and account data map, a map for Business Contact Manager 2010, and a data map for Salesforce.com data for contact and account report export, a full data export, or a report export. Sample import templates can be exported for any entity in CRM, and this is a recommended best practice, as it makes sure that all the information you need is right there. If you're doing the first data import, this is a great way to start. Exporting a sample template can be initiated from the ribbon over in Entity View, as shown here. They also can be exported from Settings, Data Management, and Templates for data import. The templates include all the data fields with column headers. Required field names are in bold. Hovering over a cell shows details of a column, and option sets show a list of valid values, and the input is restricted to valid values. So now let's take a look at the Import Wizard and some of its support. The best place to get started with data imports on the Settings Data Management menu. So let's start by taking a look at the data maps that are included with Microsoft Dynamics CRM. It comes up displaying My Active Data Maps, but if you're new to the system, you haven't created any. So let's go and take a look at all the active data maps that are provided. This corresponds with the list that I showed you earlier on one of the slides. Now, to get a template for data import, we can go and click on this option here, and then select from any entity in the system. And that does include custom entities. So for instance, we have some custom entities here, and I can download that, and it will create a template for me just as if it was a system-provided entity. However, to keep things straightforward, we'll just go with an account. So I'll click on the download button. It's now going to ask me if I want to open or save it. I want to go ahead and open it and take a look at it. And it's going to bring up Excel. And you can see across the top, we have the field names. And these are the friendly field names, not the schema names. So one of the problems that you can have is if you do a lot of customization of field names, then your templates may get stale and need to be regenerated. Now, here's an example of a drop-down field or an option set. So let's take a closer look at it. To do that, I'm going to enable editing. So you'll notice that when I click on the first field, it says it's an option set and select a value from the drop-down list. So if I come over here, it will show me all of the valid options for the deployment or CRM organization that this template was exported from. That will include any customizations that you may have made. While you may delete columns from this and add columns, it's a good idea just to populate them as you see them here, because it will make life a lot easier on your import. But basically, when CRM sees this template and starts to do the import, it will not ask you to create a map because it knows you're using a template. So let's actually attempt a sample import. So first, I exported the template for a lead. Then I made some modifications to it and added some data. So here's the modified template. I have deleted some columns and I've made it a little easier for you to read. You can paste your data in there. This is one way to go. And then you could do a file and you do save as. And what we want to do is we want to save it as a particular file type. So we're going to save it to the computer, to the desktop. And we're not going to save it as an Excel workbook because we want to set it as an XML spreadsheet. So we'll go down through the list and look for XML spreadsheet, which is right here. And I'm going to export that to my desktop. We'll go ahead and do the save. And I'll minimize this and get it out of the way. And we'll go ahead and do our import. So we click on the import icon and we go to My Imports. This will let you monitor your imports as well as start new ones. So we'll begin with import data. I'm going to do a browse and I'm going to look for that copy of lead XML, which is right here. Then click Next. Because this is from an exported template, it's going to give CRM a lot more information and make it much easier for you to bring in. So I click Next. I'm going to let it default to automatic mapping. Click Next again. And the first thing it wants to do is to determine what record type do I want to put this to. So I want to put this to lead. Next. It's going to show me all of the fields that are not mapped. And I can choose to ignore them or create new fields and so on. I can scroll on down, take a look at all this information, and then when I'm ready to go, you'll notice there was 2 required fields and they're already mapped up here at the top. So to import a lead, you must provide a last name and a topic, at least in our implementation. Click Next. I can go back in and do any editing that I might need to do. Click Next. I'm going to permit duplicates. I will be the owner for the imported records. The data map name is optional, but if you've made substantial modifications, you can go ahead and put an entry in here and save that map. So we'll do this as custom lead map. And we'll go ahead and submit this to run. Now, because we're running this from the imports data panel, I can just click Finish. But if I had submitted it from another area, I could click on Imports here, and it would take me to this screen automatically. So you can see it's submitted, and you can refresh this and keep an eye on what's going on. And typically the way this is going to work is it'll be submitted, and then it will parse, and then it will process, and then finally it'll send you a message letting you know that the import is done. The important thing to watch on this screen is the fact that you can count the successes, partial failures, and errors, and total number of records processed, which will make it easy for you to determine how well your import went. The other nice thing about imports is that I can remove the data from that import if I'm not happy with the way that it went. So let's refresh again, and we've had 3 successes. I can click Delete, and it'll give me 2 options. I can delete my import source file, I can delete all records that were imported during this import, or I can delete all imported records from the zip file. So this gives me some really powerful ways of being able to import data, and if I don't like the way the import went, I can go and remove those records and try it again. So anyway, let's go take a look at what's going on with our data in the leads. So we'll go to sales, and then we'll go to leads. And here's the 3 records that were just imported and all taken care of. So now, just to show you how this works, we're going to go back to the data management. We'll go back into imports. I'll highlight this, and I want to delete the records that were imported from this import. So I'll click that, do a submission. It's a bulk delete. It's going to send me an email to let me know when it's done, and click OK. So that job will go off and run. And ultimately, once that is finished, we'll be able to go back into the sales and leads. And once we refresh, we'll see that those leads have now been removed. And that's the data import wizard. I hope that helps.